You are listening to Fantha Tracks.
Because of the following special program, Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
I got Bantha.
It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file.
That doesn't sound too hard.
This is Making Tracks.
This is the way.
Here are your hosts, Mark Newbold and Mark Mulcaster.
I know these people. They are brutal. Does this look Jedi to you?
That's not how the Force works.
They'll never see it coming.
Count me in.
Hello and welcome to episode 255 of Making Tracks, brought to you by those fine folk over at fanfatracks.com. My name's Mark Mulcaster, and joining me this week, as always, he's never going to be anybody's Padawan. It's Mr. Mark Newbold. Mark, how you doing, buddy?
I'm fine, mate. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Been a good week, talking a lot of Star Wars with a lot of people, a lot of Maul stuff.
It's no hardship on the eyes, is it?
No, I think it's the best looking show. Generally, from what I've seen online, everything's positive. There has been as it's Star Wars, so why would you not have some people saying, "Oh, it's too dark"? But before that, have you had any new acquisitions into the collection?
Oh man, that's a good question. You caught me on the hop there. Have I had any new stuff come in? I'll tell you what I have got. It hasn't arrived yet, and I'm thrilled to bits with this. So, I collect Indiana Jones stuff as well.
Of course, yeah.
So I've had a bit of a run on video games and old computer games and stuff. So there's a few that I'm missing, but I'm pretty much there. Yeah. And for about, I'd say 15, 20 years, might even be longer than that, I've had the Atari cartridge of the original Raiders of the Lost Ark game, thinking it'll be a while before I get the box because I've only ever seen it for sort of 70, 80 quid plus postage. They're all from the States. Yeah. And I saw one the other day and it was an auction and the starting bid was like $5 and the postage was about $15. So I thought, go for that. That's nothing crazy. And long story short, I won it for $5. Nobody else bid, and I got it.
Wow.
It's coming from the wilds of I don't know where. And it cost way more in postage than it did actual cost for the auction. So I'm buzzing because I'm finally going to get a proper box. I'm looking at all the Star Wars ones box, all the Star Wars Jedi and Empire and all that stuff, Jedi Arena, got them all boxed, but never did get Raiders. So, so I'm thrilled to bits with that. So it's not in my hands yet. It'll be here early May, they're telling me. So that's the biggie this week. There's other little bits and bobs. I'll tell you one thing I did get. So Paul Naylor on Friday night was a guest of John Hipkiss in his article, 8 o'clock. On Fantha on every Friday night.
Yes.
And it's Paul talking about his toy collecting journey. And one of the things that Paul said in there was that he's a Stan Solo collector, but not only that, he is actually moving on his collection. It's not like me where he keeps stuff. It's not like yourself where you collect and keep stuff. He kind of tends to move things around, has them for a bit, moves them on. Mm-hmm. So at the moment, he's moving on his Stan Solo stuff.
Oh, really?
Before he decided to move on his Stan Solo stuff, I ordered a brochure, a Stan Solo brochure. I thought that this brochure was going to be like A4, big, proper like booklet thing.
Massive.
It actually came and kind of beautifully. Remember the old Palatoy and Kenner, the little catalogues that are sort of, 4 inches by 3.5 inches, whatever? It's that size. And it took me a while. When it came, I opened up the box and I'm like, what the fuck is this? I was expecting a brochure. And then I thought, hang on. It's ever so nice. It's really nice. So I have that for Paul. So that came, one for me to go in the collection. They're really cute. So anyway, what have you got, mate?
Cool. I had a few things. Got one thing coming which was kind of like a complete random purchase. So we'll talk about that when it arrives because I'm a little bit let's see what this actually is when it arrives. It felt a little bit too good to be true because it was a tip from a good friend of mine and vintage stars collector Phil Parker. I'm sure it's probably something that is actually legit. But what I brought, because I was looking for one at Echo Live the other week, but I couldn't find one. I got a really nice Han Solo blaster.
Nice. I've got the Empire one.
The stickers on this are intact. It's really clean. It still works. That's the most important thing. I was like looking for, like you, like a boxed one, but we're talking 600-700 quid for a good box, and that's the thing these days for me anyway. When I want to buy like vintage stuff, I'm like, I want a pretty decent conditioned box because it's never going to come out and be displayed. But these blasters, fair, they still cost me like over 150 quid, I think, plus shipping, but they display really well. So, you know, get a little 3D printed stand. So I'm going to tap up my friends Lily and Rich and make him 3D print me one. And,
I might just talk to you about that because I wouldn't mind a stand for mine. It's a great idea.
Sure.
Yeah.
They run their little 3D printing company, Sci-Fi Annihilator. Have we ever spoken to them?
We know them too well.
We want to put them under the pressure, yeah. And I know Lily does actually listen to this show every now and again, so I'm sure she'll be like, oh,
every now and again.
Oh, come on, I'll talk to you guys. So so that's what I got this week. But anyhow, it's not a collecting show; it's a news show. So what's the news for this week, then, sir?
Yes, we've got a collecting show. Collecting Tracks episode 21 came out last weekend. It was fantastic. Mark Hamill, he briefly discussed the new leadership at Lucasfilm, obviously including Dave Filoni. And Dave is somebody that Mark has had dealings with in amongst other topics that he's talked about, 50 years since starting filming the movie and his excitement back in the day when the comic came out, because he's a comics guy, as we know. He actually says of Dave Filoni, he can't think of better hands for Star Wars than Filoni, and mentions, obviously, having worked with him on the Clone Wars as the voice of Darth Bane, and obviously in The Mandalorian in a variety of roles, of course, returning as Luke. And he says George was a mentor to Dave, so he knows George's sensibility. He's been impressed by working with him and the great stuff that he's done, including Mando and Book of Boba. And Hamill doesn't go into great detail, but clearly he appreciates and understands Dave. Your thoughts, Hamill doing the stuff that he did back in the day, all with George or with George overseeing it. He comes back to The Force Awakens, barely in, sadly, The Force Awakens, but he does have one of the most impactful scenes in all of Star Wars. And he can say that about The Mandalorian. We kind of get the sense that he might not have been the happiest bunny in the hutch about The Last Jedi. My read of it is that he's kind of come to terms with it, but his appearance in Mando and Grogu, and then consequently in Book of Boba, really fleshes out the role of Luke Skywalker in that era. What's your read on his opinion on Dave Filoni?
Yeah, I think actually he made a good point, actually. And what I like is that he hasn't kind of used some of the cliches that we hear quite a lot now with regards to Dave Filoni about him, like, being taught by George, as it were, or under the learning tree, and that he's kind of saying he's got the same sensibilities, which actually I think that's quite a savvy way. And I think that goes to show that it's not necessarily Dave's understanding of, say, Star Wars in respect of, obviously, we know he understands Star Wars, but it's about, how George approached Star Wars from a visual perspective as well, and maybe like some of the tones and themes and that, which George focused in on, which hopefully then Dave will carry on with. And like you said, I think when it comes to The Last Jedi stuff like that, time is a great healer. And ultimately, as an actor, you're kind of in that position whereby if you don't necessarily agree with the direction of a character, but it's a character you're associated with, I mean, what really can he do? You can suggest, and I don't want to say throw your toys out the pram, but you can try and argue the case, but ultimately it's down to directors' view and sensibilities, exactly. But once the director's yelled cut, that's it. It's completely out of your hands, and you just got to accept that whatever version of that character viewers then see is that version that is going to go on with. So you just have to, I guess, live with it. Let's say these legacy and perennial actors who are so well known and associated with a specific character, that when the character does take a left turn and we're expecting a right turn, that must actually affect your own perspective on the franchise. George had his version of Luke and only took it so far. We never really saw any more of George's views on Luke after Return of the Jedi. We never got the opportunity. And his return in The Force Awakens, and, there's notes and words out there of what George thought of what became 7, 8, and 9, and obviously wasn't what he was planning. Bob Iger's discussed that he's aware that it wasn't what George had planned, but George sold it to us, so it was kind of out of George's hands. So, there's only so much sympathy you can give to that position because he sold it. If George really was that passionate about telling that story, he wouldn't have sold Lucasfilm to anyone, let alone Disney. So you can only take that so far, I think, in all fairness. Yeah. But the key word that you've picked up on there is sensibilities, because Filoni could have sat under the Luke, and he did. He sat under the Lucas learning tree. But one thing he didn't learn from George, because it's personal to everyone, and that is definitely shown by Rian Johnson's sensibilities, is that your sensibilities are your sensibilities. And the fact that Dave and George clearly are cut from very much of the same cloth, I don't think is something that you can necessarily teach. You can imbue and you can learn and you can take on board certain traits, certain lessons, things that influence George. But of course, Filoni's younger than me. So George is 30 years, let's say, give or take 30 years. Well, he is 30 years. I think Filoni's born in 74 and George was born in 44. References, you can be aware of the Buck Rogers
Commander Cody, the Flash Gordon references that George took on board, but they don't have the same cultural resonance to Filoni, do they?
No, exactly. And that's the thing. And I guess the risk is that then you've got to be very careful that what you're doing isn't, working with the same sensibilities and same kind of style, but actually it becomes more of a pastiche or a derivative of that. Because I guess what we don't want with Star Wars directors and creators is to try and ape George Lucas's style about. I think it's good that we have everybody's different approaches to Star Wars. I don't know if we ever spoke about it. We probably did at the time. I don't even know if Mark Hamill did. What his opinions were on seeing like the young Luke in Kenobi. That's a completely different perspective of that character that back in 77 when he's out in Tunisia, he's probably not even thinking about that. He's thinking about maybe, oh yeah, George said I might be coming back in 30 years to play an old Luke. But I bet he's definitely not thinking about, some small younger kid's going to play the young version of me, say, like in 20, 30 years' time. So
some kid whose parents aren't even born yet is going to play a younger version of this character I'm playing right now. Yeah, that's not going to be in his mindset. It's a great point, though. I think more so for somebody like, let's say, Mark or Harrison or Carrie.
Yeah.
You could understand them feeling like, well, this is my character. Weirdly, as time has gone on over the last half a century, Luke and Leia and Han, to a lesser degree Han, but certainly Luke and Leia have actually ended up being more alike to characters like Vader, who to be brought to life, even in the original, needed a stunt guy, Dave Prowse, James Earl Jones. You needed multiple people to bring certain characters to life. You could say Anthony Daniels has probably got more of an ownership, Michael the air quotes, of 3PO. Who else has played 3PO? You've had animated 3PO. Anthony voiced that, so he's pretty much always been involved. But even a character like Luke, now you've got Grant Feely, as you've just said, plays in Young Book of Boba Fett. Harrison with obviously playing Solo, and then Alden Ehrenreich playing the young Solo. But Leia, you've had multiple actresses voice younger Leias and older Leias in gaming and those realms. And Vivian Laura Blair obviously playing young Leia in Obi-Wan Kenobi. So you're starting to get into that realm of the characters. If they want to carry on, you've got to expand it. Obviously, Ingrid Vela in Rogue One briefly. So they're more of a partnership. I think that's where Hayden Christensen's been so clever in what he's done in returning to Star Wars. Is there's an area of Star Wars he can be involved in, and weirdly, in a good way, I think he's taken on a sort of ownership of Darth Vader in a way that he was always Anakin. They felt like they were separate things, but now he's taken ownership of that. So it is quite a nuanced thing with these characters.
I'm Derek Arnold, and I get my news from Fantha Tracks.
So at the back end of 2025, we got shock news, and it did feel like shock news, that Steven Soderbergh, Adam Driver, and a handful of other people had been working on a project called The Hunt for Ben Solo. It wasn't just pie in the sky. It was a thing. It was a thing that was so much of a thing that it got taken to the front door of Disney itself, who then said, thank you, but no thank you. This doesn't fit what we want to do. With all the changes coming, maybe that wasn't a bad thing. Maybe it would have just been struck off at the desk, as other projects have been over the years. But now we have Dave Filoni, we have Lyndon Brennan. I think Kennedy has moved forward and moved on in her career, who was a great proponent, it seems, of Lucasfilm taking chances. And Soderbergh has spoken up about this quite recently. And he has said, well, I don't want to say it had no influence, because then it makes it seem like, I watched Andor and it had absolutely no impact on me, which is not true. It was great, but this was before Andor aired. Adam and I started talking, and this would have been almost 3 years ago. So he's referring to whether or not Andor had any influence on The Hunt for Ben Solo. Mm-hmm. And he says clearly it didn't, because this has been in process for quite a long time. It was strictly Adam saying, I think there's still somewhere to go with this character. That's how it started. Otherwise, I never in a million years would have found myself in that universe again. I don't regret 1 minute of the time we spent working on that. I thought the work was good. It's just good for you to be in that room and working on it. It's like CrossFit. It's good for you. It'll have a residual effect that will be unexpected at some point. As soon as it became apparent, okay, it's not going to happen, I sat down and started writing. It's like, okay, new scenario, let's get cracking. At a certain point, it's like complaining about the weather. You just got to keep moving. And finally, he says, look, if it was going to happen, it would have happened. It's that simple. So plenty of quotes from Soderbergh. He's saying, it ain't going to happen. We've got a new leadership. Dave Filoni might sit down and have a read of the details and go, this is the greatest thing ever. It gets me involved in the sequel trilogy era. We've got to push on with that as a thing going forward. Dave's got his own characters that we all know, and the focus seems to be on them very much at the moment with Ahsoka Season 2, Mando and Grogu, more Shadow Lords, all Filoni-centric characters. But Soderbergh doesn't think that's going to happen. What do you think?
the further away you get from the Rise of Skywalker in terms of like since it's been released, then the momentum's gone from it. So then suddenly it becomes a bigger marketing headache as well amongst everything else that you're doing. Many a franchise has like ideas that sit on the back burner for years, and then they come up with another story, and then they actually, maybe there's a way that we could merge the two. And I said back, I think in December, I wouldn't be surprised if they were to rework it in something with Ray, to see if the Ray film could work alongside with the Adam Driver film, like The Search for Ben Solo. I mean, the reason why it didn't happen was because Bob Iger, I don't think, could get around the idea that this character had died, and they couldn't then kind of see him coming back to life. It's whether or not Josh D'Amaro is of a similar view, or in fact maybe he's a little bit more kind of open-minded to these things. But also then you have to understand that like directors like Steven Soderbergh are going to be booked up for years in advance, so that might have been a window of inactivity, and now he might have moved on to other things, which therefore means he may not be available. So whether or not that means the story then just sits in kind of like developmental hell, or gets picked up and gets a new lease of life later on. I truly believe where we are now, you take Maul, for example, like I don't think you can really say that, just because a character's dead, that you can't bring them back to life. I think that is probably the most optimistic and pragmatic view you can really take on this project.
I completely agree, hence my thumbs up. I think with all the characters that you could throw back in somebody's face and say, hang on a minute, Filoni was there with Lucas when the whole Mortis thing happened, World Between Worlds, all these things that felt like they were really outside the boundaries of what Star Wars would do, and yet now feel very integral to the fabric of it all. And so if you can work those things in and not completely hoodoo the bed, then you can pretty much do anything. And you just said it, Maul is the greatest example. Whenever anybody says that's stupid, that couldn't happen, that won't happen, that doesn't make sense, then you just look at them and go, okay, explain Darth Maul then. Explain Darth Maul. And just on that, two things, visual effects technology is moving forward so quickly. You might, in days past, you go, this guy's too old now, he can't play that role anymore. But VFX and the advancements of different technologies means that you could take 10, 15 years off certain actors if you wanted to. So the fact that it's not happening today, exactly, doesn't mean that you couldn't do this project in 15 years' time. Adam Driver could 55 and they could go back and do Ben Solo, Kylo Ren as he looked when he was in his early 30s, and nobody would blink an eye. It's an easy thing to do. And also, the storyline-wise, you can work these things around. It's not, to my mind, it's not for Bob Iger or Josh D'Amaro to go, no, that's stupid, that doesn't make sense. That's a story group thing. If they think they can make it work and the fandom can get behind it, they can seed things in an animated show, like they did with The Mandalorian and Rise of Skywalker, with Rey healing the snake and Grogu healing Grief Karga. You can seed these things if you're smart, or drop it in a comic. It's in canon, or drop it in a book, and just enough that when it happens on screen, you can go, well, look, it happened in that book, or it happened in that comic, or it happened on that episode. So they could be smart. Lucasfilm's got this monster realm of places that they can drop story things in, just to point back and go, well, you didn't kick off then, so why are you kicking off now?
Yeah, and who's to say that this story has to be set as a young Ben Solo story? You know, this could be like, you know, the hunt for Ben Solo. It kind of feels like it could almost be a Daisy Ridley-led story, and almost a bit like The Force Awakens in some respects. And she's out looking for an older Ben. I don't know, maybe she's in her 50s, late 50s or something, and still not quite over her first crush. That is the impetus for the story. Or there's loads of different ways to do it. Lucasfilm, if they don't think they're jumping the shark too massively with this, there's always going to be a sector of the fandom who will be like, no, it's not going to work. But then, I think a lot of the fandom is fairly optimistic. But I think the trick and the knack is obviously selling that to the general audience. That is probably the harder bit, because I think if they put it out in 10 years' time, we'd know exactly who Ben Solo is and remember all that stuff. But the general audience, I think, has got a shorter memory these days. Yeah. So then you've got to remind everybody of, he was Kylo Ren and this and that. And then a bit like people go, the prequels. It'll be a similar kind of thing. It'll be like negative connections to the sequel trilogy because some people didn't like that. And so that is the hardest sell, but I don't think it's impossible. No one's ever really truly gone.
For everything in one location, daily news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, video, and social media feeds, bookmark FanthaTracks.com for Star Wars news 24/7, 365.
So at the last Echo Live in Redditch, I had the very, very great pleasure of meeting a lady called Kumi. Now, you might not initially know who Kumi is, but when you look at the back of Bantha Tracks and see very cute little drawings of Tauntauns and the editor of Bantha Tracks, Maureen Garrett, those were drawn by Kumi. And Kumi, as it turns out, lives about half an hour from me and has done for 35 years.
Yeah.
And I had the great pleasure of meeting her at Echo Live and then, as a consequence, sitting down and having a conversation with her about her Star Wars journey. So this is myself and Kumi talking all about her days drawing for Bantha Tracks here on Making Tracks.
So I'm in your living room. I'm looking at these amazing pieces from your history with Star Wars. Tell me, before we discuss any of this, what grabbed you, what got you into Star Wars in the first place?
The first place was obviously when I saw the film, because it was obviously everything was new. Perhaps I went to the cinema about maybe 100 times.
Wow.
And I stayed in the cinema. That time you are allowed to stay in the cinema for whole day, so maybe I was staying there for 4 times. So that's how it started. But the Empire Strikes Back changed my actually life.
Yeah.
Because I really like the film, but I didn't have a lot of friends around me who like really deep into Star Wars. So I started private fan club in Japan. So I met a lot of people, and that's how I sort of started like involved with some event or the activities.
Yeah. Was it a fanzine? Was it a printed magazine?
We made a printed magazine, monthly one, but just all handwriting and with a lot of cartoons and just like a fun, rather than deep into. We just like a chatting through the magazine.
And what was it called?
It's called it's a fan club name. It's called Little Falcon. And the fanzines, it's called Bantha Tracks.
Love it. Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect.
Because I love Tauntaun. The Tauntaun is maybe the most one of the most favorite character in Star Wars. And 8080.
Of course.
Yes.
You're known for your artwork. Where did your artwork begin? Were you always a kid that drew?
Yes, I always liked the other drawings, but and I like drawing animals rather than people.
Yeah.
So, again, Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, a lot of creatures. So I just enjoyed writing those creatures. So that I always like drawing.
So before your association with Bantha Tracks, you were already a fan, you were already drawing, you'd started your own fan club. So how did you come to the attention of Maureen Garrett and Bantha Tracks?
I think because Bantha Tracks always asking the fans to send drawings or illustrations.
Yeah.
So I think I sent my first cartoon to her. Then I got a letter from Maureen Garrett. She said she really liked my drawing. So she asked me if I can draw her caricature.
Yeah.
So that's how I sort of started with contacting her personally.
It's crazy because for a lot of us that read the magazine when we were kids and think back to that time, we see Maureen through your drawing. That's how we visualise Maureen. So was she pleased with the piece? Was she pleased with the artwork? I
think she's pleased. And I did several Maureen's the caricature with Star Wars characters.
Yeah.
And I'm very appreciated. She put a lot of my drawings on the Bantha Tracks. So I think she really liked my drawings and different like Tauntauns and things. So yes, I think she liked my drawings.
And when did you know that? Because she requested this, obviously she liked your artwork. When did you know that? Or when did it start that you were beginning to do these more regularly? Because there's about 10 issues, give or take?
Yes. Once she asked me to do her caricatures, I think I draw some illustrations, maybe just by myself, with the drawings.
Yeah.
Rather than like she asked me to draw, I just send them with some letters because she sent me a lot of very nice letters.
Because you were a teenager and you were a fan of Star Wars, and it's so special to us, and you're now associated with the official fan club. How did that feel for you?
until recently at the Eco-Base event, then when I saw my illustration on the magazine, which was sold on the store, sort of I forgot about it. Then suddenly I saw, this is my illustration.
Yeah.
So I told the gentleman who's selling that, who's running that store, I said, can I take a picture of this magazine? Because I was a member of the fan club, and also I draw this.
Amazing.
Then how it's like also sort of it was like my past. I still following Star Wars films, but what I did with the fan club was sort of forgotten for 40 years.
That's crazy. And now has it made you, because it was Simon that you saw, who very excitedly told me you were walking around Echo in Reddit. Has it made you now sort of sit down? You've got these lovely pictures of your visit to Lucasfilm there with Maureen, and some of the fanzine bits and T-shirts, Starlogs, and because you wrote for the Japanese Starlog, Lucasfilm Christmas cards, which blows my mind because I collect them, so that's amazing. And a piece of the Death Star. It's all these amazing things. Has it made you kind of sit down and start thinking back about those days? Because it's such a wonderful connection to the original trilogy that a lot of people won't be aware of.
Oh, it's actually it was must be very, very special. Well, when I was a teenager, I sort of dedicated all my time for Star Wars, and connecting with the official Star Wars fan club, Maureen, was it opened my mind to. I was living in Tokyo in a small house. USA is, or the outside of Japan was just like far away, and it's opened like my eyes to what's happening in the other places. So but when I look back now, I more appreciate what the fan club, also Maureen, did it to me. Because you can see those letters. She was so nice, so lovely. Also, I looked back the fan club magazines. They're very nice. It's a lot of like interviews and technical information, but it's showing how they looked after the fans in all different ages. So it's remind me that we maybe that I still like Star Wars because it's made myself, and if it's not, I was not doing this, I didn't see you. So that's it's quite amazing.
It is. It unifies people and it brings us together in a way I think sometimes we don't think about and don't appreciate. This is phenomenal stuff. Tell me a little bit about your trip. You took a trip when you were 20?
Yes, when I was 20. So me and my friend decided to go to visit USA. Then I already doing corresponding with Maureen, and she always said, if you chance to come to the USA, please contact me, so I'll show you the office. So I told her I'm coming, and she's very kind. She said, gave me some dates. So we met at I think somewhere in Los Angeles. So she came with her boyfriend that time and picked us up, and they took us to somewhere I really didn't understand. It's because that time I couldn't speak any English at all. It was a bit shame because perhaps she told me a lot of different information. I couldn't understand that. So I think it was I don't know, Lucasfilm, I don't know. But it's the fan club office. So they took me there, and he just showed me around a bit in the office, and we had a chat. I couldn't speak. So again, it was very special time. I think there's a door maybe leading to it says a big, it says big Lucasfilm or ILM.
Yeah.
Maybe that's somewhere. I was just thinking, but we didn't go it. So it was very special. I would love to find out where she is. When she sent me her a resignation letter, she said to keep in touch, but obviously we lost in touch.
Yeah.
So I'd love to know she's somewhere, living somewhere, doing well. She may still be involved in some Star Wars or Lucasfilm. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it would be grateful if somebody could find it for me.
Absolutely. It just strikes me that your story starts in Japan, and you get involved with Bantha Tracks, and you visit Maureen in the States, and now here we are near Dudley, right, living half an hour away from each other for all these years. What brought you to the UK?
Oh yes, okay. I came here to study totally different, something totally different.
Yeah.
To study garden design.
Wow.
So English garden design.
Yeah.
That was about 35 years ago. So my plan was learning. That's like sort of bit of the move of English design. It was popular in Japan. So I thought, okay, I wanted to. That is when I was nearly reached to 30 years old. Yeah. So I got to do something urge to do it. So my plan was running English garden. English garden design.
Yeah.
I back to Japan.
Yeah.
And I do my business. I met my husband.
Yeah.
In a college, and he was studying the conservation.
Yeah.
In the same college, he was doing master or something. Then we met and ended up staying in this country.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing that garden design business, but
but your garden's lovely. So
it's a very small garden. Anyway, that's how started. So I'm here about 33 years now.
Wow.
And stuck in the black country.
Stuck? You're not stuck in the black country. I just think it's amazing that, as I say, there's this beautiful. I mean, this is a podcast, but I'm looking at this amazing stuff. That's such a connection to the original trilogy. Something that with 50 years next year, they were filming Star Wars right now 50 years ago, that those moments and that connection is so precious, and here you are near Dudley. I think that's
amazing. I think maybe the Force.
Yes, it's the Force.
To us.
That's wonderful. We will definitely speak again. There are so many stories here.
It's very nice. I'm very honored to meet you. Thank you so much.
Oh, very much the same.
This may seem like a big question, but I'm going to ask it because we're on the cusp now, give or take 40 days away from the arrival of Mando and Grogu. The 50th anniversary is next year. May the 4th isn't that far away from us this year. Lots of things lined up for 2026 and probably even more lined up for 2027. But right now, Mark, how do you feel about Star Wars as a whole, as a general spherical thing that contains all things Star Wars within it? Be it conventions, be it publication stuff, what we see on screen. Where or how do you feel about Star Wars right now?
I've engaged and resonated more with the Maul series that we've seen. And both me and you have been lucky enough, thanks to Disney and Disney debut, that we've managed to see the first 8 episodes, which is fantastic. Yeah. And I'm talking about the actual show is also fantastic. So I have noticed that some of the other stuff that may have come out just recently, which may not have necessarily grabbed me so much, I have noticed a difference in terms of my excitement levels and how well I'm more engaging with things. But then, we've got Mando and Grogu coming out. I'm really looking forward to that. Sometimes because we're in these positions to kind of comment on Star Wars and the Star Wars community as well, you kind of try and take in lots of people's opinions. And I think it's mixed. I think there's a lot of hope. A lot of people are kind of hoping that, say, Mando and Grogu does well. A lot of people are looking forward to Starfighter. But it kind of feels like, I think at the moment, there still doesn't necessarily feel like there's a direction. And I think that's because we get to Starfighter and Lin-Win Brennan and Dave Filoni, suddenly they're more comfortable in their positions. They've made some big announcements, hopefully at Celebration or something next year. And we know what maybe the next 5 or 10 years is. And I think that's the thing. It's kind of a comparison thing, isn't it? It's like we've just come out of 10 years of knowing that there's going to be a Star Wars film every single year. And then suddenly we're now into this position of, we know that there's all these things in production or being worked on and in various different developmental stages, but we don't know what's coming. I think it's exciting, not knowing, but I know a lot of people want to know because I kind of want to know what I'm looking forward to. I'm kind of fairly optimistic, I think.
That's a good way of putting it, that for all those years from like 2015 onwards, and obviously Force Awakens was announced, I think, in 2013. So,
yeah, exactly.
You know, with 13 years past learning, we are getting episode 7. That's 13 years ago. That's insane. That we knew what was coming, where we were with things, and then everything else was a surprise. Now, as you say, and it's been like this for a while. I mean, Mando and Grogu is the first film for 7 years, near enough. So we've not had that. But because we now live in a world that we didn't before, I'm talking about before, and before was 14 years plus ago. So it's ridiculous to even compare. But we would have things announced, whereas now we have these Disney shareholder meetings and things get teased, and there's plenty of projects that got teased, like Droid Tales, like Adventures of the New Republic, and things like that that never came to pass. And so you kind of get a bit excited for that, and then they don't come about. But it's a different world where you've got shareholder consideration to factor in, and it's a different media world, and so on and so forth. So I think right now with Star Wars, I very much agree with your assessment, actually. I think more people are excited for Starfighter than they are for Mando and Grogu, because weirdly, I don't think the marketing has really kicked in yet for Mando and Grogu.
No.
You know, here in the UK, we've got some on-the-shelf tie-in. So Walker's Crisps are doing a tie-in with Mando and Grogu. Robinsons, who do the squashes, the fruit juice, they're doing a tie-in with Mando and Grogu. So there's things there. You know, right now we've got a Kinder Egg promotion for Star Wars, just generic Star Wars, not just for Mando and Grogu. So there's things there, and we are pretty soon, as I say, we're sort of, 5 weeks, 6 weeks out. We are going to start seeing Mando and Grogu posters on buses and at bus stops, and so there's that. But I think there's more excitement for Starfighter than there is for Mando and Grogu. Yeah. And I think personally that's because it's coming from a TV show.
Hi, I'm Duncan Poe, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
Like, when we've looked at the trailer, there hasn't been a OMG moment, or like, that looks really cool. It all looks fantastic and good, but it also just looks like The Mandalorian. But then, like, the other day, Project Hail Mary, which is a fantastic film, in IMAX, you know, and preceding that was The Mandalorian and Grogu trailer. I'm there clapping and stuff at the end, and Karen's like sinking down into seat. But I just do that just to wind her up. But I mean, generally, it looked fan-freaking-tastic on the big screen. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it. But when you go to see Episode 7 or The Force Awakens or Episode 9 of that, because it feels like it's part of this saga, this Skywalker saga, it feels like it's really consequential. I mean, it's hard to even really put your finger on exactly what the story's about. They seem to be just playing the same few clips, like, and there's quite a bit on stars.com. It hits my reels all the time, like some of these behind the scenes kind of roundtables they started to put out with Jon Favreau and Grogu and Sigourney Weaver and all that. But it seems to be, it's just like the same kind of footage, and there's very little new footage coming out, and which is fine, because we probably know that what we've seen is the first 15 minutes of film. But I don't feel like somebody's, you know, and then I was trying to remind myself, did we know as much about, like, The Force Awakens as we know about Mandalorian and Grogu? Or is it just because, I don't know, we're just a little bit more kind of picky these days or something, a little bit more critical?
That's a great point. I mean, you know, if we wound the clock back and looked, I mean, we had the journey to The Force Awakens, so we had the publishing program, which we don't seem to have got with this. No. And back then, the comics either had just started up or were about to start up. The comics are really on the back foot at the moment. So there's that there's differences there, and maybe that's just an entertainment cultural difference. But also, I think with Starfighter, for example, it's post Episode 9, so we're going into an era we don't know anything about.
No.
With characters we don't know. Sure, there'll be cameos. I can't see how there won't be. But whatever they do, that's not the focus of that project. I will say that it is yet another project. So you've got Starfighter, older character with a young child. Mando and Grogu, older character with a young child. Obi-Wan Kenobi, older character with a young child. Acolyte, older characters with a young child. Too much of the master and apprentice, too much of the older guy and the young kid. Same with Maul, it's the same thing. So they need to break that trope, because that is starting to get a bit old and redundant now. They need to break away from that and do something different, because that is starting to feel like a pattern. It's great fun. Everything's fun. Everything's interesting and engaging. But can we please change that record? Because that could get old if they don't start to turn that particular little ship around. But in terms of this, in terms of what we've got looking forward to in Mando and Grogu, I just think we've seen three seasons of the TV show, and I don't see another Mandalorian film coming after this. I could be wrong.
No. Yeah, I mean, I think you're kind of right in some respects. It is that thing of, like, if you don't understand, like, the relationship really between, like, Mando and Grogu right now, if you've watched the first 3 seasons, then there's no point trying to do it in the marketing.
Yeah.
That's just one of those things that I think that will just happen. But also, we're saying all this now. Well, actually, we can come out from that first screening and be like, holy crap.
Do you remember when we saw Solo? We were on Leicester Square. We were jumping around high-fiving each other. I'm hoping it's that.
Yeah, rather than going, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. I've said this before, you said this before. What Star Wars needs in the short term is just a good box office win, just to get Star Wars and the positivity back into the franchise.
Yeah.
Maybe even a little bit more confidence in the industry around some of these things, and then just see what happens. Because the thing is, I think with Mandalorian, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's been done like this intentionally, is that if it's a single closed story, as it were, it doesn't have much follow-on, it means that you can just jump back in and just do another one. It doesn't need to be a continuation of stuff. We don't need a trilogy of Mandalorian films. But if we want to do another one, then just tell another kick-ass story.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. And in the broader sense, Star Wars, merchandise is what merchandise is. It's a huge part of what Star Wars is. And that's all good and fine. That world turns as it does. And in terms of comics and books, it's fairly quiet at the moment. My wallet is saying, thank you, Lucasfilm, because it's not killing me at the moment, because I know it's going to go nuts next year.
Paying off some of those credit cards,
Exactly that. Exactly, literally that. And, with Starfighter, I think that'll be a whole journey to the blah, blah, blah type scenario for that. And I'm all in for that and excited.
But the thing is, actually, you need a little bit of a lull now and again, because
you do.
You can't expect fandom and casual fans, especially the casual fans, to be that invested all the time.
No.
Because then they become hardcore fans, and then they are by default just about invested, like me and you. It doesn't matter what they put out, really. We're going to go and see it, and multiple times, and we'll buy the book tie-ins and everything else, and the comics. But it's like you have to give people a chance to jump into it, give them a bit of a breather, and do other exciting things and go through different areas of storytelling, like we're seeing with Maul, which is kind of fantastic at the moment.
And it does feel like we're moving through an era of Star Wars. It feels like we're in a certain phase right now. Mando Grogu's something, and Starfighter is definitely at the 50th.
Probably in 5 years' time, we'll be able to give it a name, like we gave it Dark Times and stuff. So, but it's definitely not Dark Times. It's definitely still light and bright and breezy. Okay, so thank you very much, Mr. Newbold, for joining me, or me joining you, one of the two, I don't know.
You came together, Mark.
It's like a forced dyad, isn't it? It's a dyad in the force. Dear, oh dear. But no listeners' question, but we did have I suppose you'd say, like a presenter's question this week, which is good. We do love, in fact, we much prefer listeners' questions. So if you want to send in a voice note, or if you want to send in an email, then Mr. Newbold can tell you how you can get in touch.
Yes, I can. Voice notes, email, snail mail, anything you like. Pass me a brown envelope under the table. I'll take it gratefully. And the way to get in touch with us is by doing this.
Email radio@fanthatracks.com. Head to links.fanthatracks.com for links to our social media feeds, Fantha Tracks TV and Fantha Tracks Radio. Thanks to James Semple for the Fantha Tracks intro, Blues Harvest for our Making Tracks opening music, and Mark Daniel and Vanessa Marshall for our voiceovers. New episodes drop Tuesdays and Fridays at 7 o'clock UK time. Our weekly news show, Good Morning Tatooine, goes live Sundays at 9 o'clock UK time on Facebook and YouTube. And remember, Fantha Tracks is absolutely free, so it costs nothing to stay updated on all the latest Star Wars news.
And that's me done for this episode, Mark.
Excellent. And that is me done as well. So thank you very much. And everybody, we will be back for a reaction chat on Monday. So until next time, everybody stay safe, take care, and may the Force be with you.
Coming up next on Bantha Tracks Radio, it's Planet Leia.